Yeah, a lot of... Whew, that snuck up from nowhere. Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk. I'm taking a trip back in time today. I'm looking at the year 1997 and I'm going to give you my top 10 movies of that year. Before we get into it, I do want to give some honourable mentions. There are a lot of films that are released every year, and obviously when you're looking back at an older year, you've probably seen more from that year than you usually would, because, you know, over time you watch more films and they mount up. So yeah, a lot of films from 1997 are actually pretty good. I'm going to throw up a card now just to show you my honourable mentions. This is basically my number 11 to 20. Yeah, all really good films that just didn't quite make the list. Titanic there, Best Picture winner. A lot of people quite down on that film, but, you know, I like it. I like what Cameron did with it. He sucked me into the story. Breakdown there, down at 20. Got a really good thriller there. Very good thriller. Some very good science fiction with Starship Troopers. Tremendous action scenes in that still hold up even today. Lolita, proof that you can remake a Stanley Kubrick film and not embarrass yourself. It's actually a pretty decent remake. So much so that I may even prefer it, to be honest. It's been a while since I've seen it. I did see the remake before I saw Kubrick's original, but from what I remember, yeah, it was pretty good. I will have to revisit that again soon, I think. Also, we got Running Time there, you can see, an independent film. Not a lot of people have seen this, but if you can find it somewhere on DVD, it is worth checking out. It's a film that's done all as one shot. You know, films like Birdman, Gravity, that kind of thing, it's done like that. It was done long before those films and on a very, very meagre budget. It stars Bruce Campbell, but yeah, it's very good. For the resources they had, very good indeed. Basically, they are my honourable mentions. They are, you know, the films that didn't quite make the cut. But what did? Let's get into my top 10 of 1997. First up is Disney's Hercules. It took me a while to warm to this film, to even go and watch it, to be honest. From the trailers, I don't think I was that much of a fan of the character designs, the way the animation was. But once I eventually saw the film on video, rented it from the video store, I really loved it. I liked the songs, I liked the characters. It's got one of the best Disney villains. James Woods is always great as a villain, whether he's animated or live action. A lot of really great action scenes as well, side characters that are amusing. Yeah, I like that kind of Greek mythology kind of put up on the screen in this way. It's just a very good Disney film. You know, maybe doesn't get quite the amount of credit that it deserves, because it was kind of that mid to late 90s period. We'd had Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast and Lion King, and before them Little Mermaid, which was kind of like a golden era for Disney. You know, those 4 films all coming out, just top draw. And I think after that, things started to wane a bit for people. I don't know if just interest kind of went away or what, but Hercules never seems to quite get the attention. There's a few films from Disney actually around that period that don't quite seem to get the attention that those other 4 did, and I think this one deserves it. Hercules, really great animated film. And number 9 is The Relic. This is a horror film by director Peter Hyams. Great creature effects by Stan Winston. I like it. Every time I've watched it, I get sucked into it. I think I love the atmosphere, really dark and dank. And a museum is the perfect place to set a horror film. It really is. When I used to go to museums as a child, and you know, you'd get like statues, reenactments kind of things of things from the past, and they'd have those figures of people, cavemen and whatnot, frozen in time. They always used to freak me out. Museums in general used to freak me out when I was a kid. I think I had to be with someone if I was going to go to a museum. I didn't really like them. But yeah, perfect place to set a horror film. And I just think Peter Hyams, he's made some really great films. But this one, I think, is probably my favourite from him. It's a tie between this and Outland, but this, yeah, very good horror film. I love the monster that's in it, and Tom Sizemore playing against type. You know, he plays a cop in this. He's a good guy. He's a bit rough around the edges, which I guess is what he's good at doing. But it's not the usual. He doesn't usually get to play the lead. That's the thing. He's usually in a side character role or a supporting role or whatever. But yeah, here takes centre stage, and he does a good job with it. It's one of his best performances, I would say. At number 8, we've got another animated film, which some people may be quite surprised to hear from me, to be honest. But yeah, another animated film, Princess Mononoke. This is from Studio Ghibli. It's a Miyazaki film. It's the first Miyazaki film that I saw, actually, and it just blew me away. I thought it was incredible. I watched it primarily because Gillian Anderson did a voice to it, when it was obviously redubbed for the English language. Gillian Anderson did a voice in it, and yeah, but beyond that, just the animation is incredible. Really fluid stuff, crazy, wacky, fairy tale stuff, but just, yeah, enchanting is the word I would use, and scary as well at parts. You know, there's stuff in this that if you were to make a live action film out of, yeah, you're kind of touching on A Quiet Place territory, that kind of thing, but just brilliant conceptually, and yeah, just execution, fantastic animation, as you would expect with Ghibli, however you pronounce that. At number 7, we've got Gattaca, a really great slow burn science fiction film from the writer of The Truman Show. I do think Andrew Niccol has never done anything as good as The Truman Show since, but as The Truman Show is in my top 5 films of all time, it's not, you know, it's not too bad to say, well, it doesn't quite touch those heights. Gattaca is still a great science fiction film, and probably the best thing that Niccol has directed, to be honest. Ethan Hawke doing really great work, and Uma Thurman for that matter. It's just a story about mankind's ability to do things, achieve things under the circumstances we've been given, I guess. You know, it's about genetic manipulation and trying to seek perfection and give people things at a genetic level that will predispose them to do something to the best of their ability, but ultimately nothing on a genetic level in that regard can overcome free will. The strongest thing will always be free will, man's determination, God-given, if you want to see it that way, which I do, to achieve what God wants them to achieve, I guess. So yeah, brilliant film that touches on all the great themes that all the great science fiction films do. You know, what does it mean to be human? Number 6 is probably David Fincher's most, I don't know if I want to use the word underrated this time, but certainly overlooked film, which is The Game. I bunked off school. I bunked off school twice in my entire life when I, you know, in my school days, and one of them was to go and see this film. I went on my own, wasn't with anyone. I went into the screen. There was one other guy sat behind me over on the left. I remember this distinctly. It's bizarre how you remember things like that. I was 17 years old at the time, so but yeah, I went, I watched it, I loved it. I think a lot of whether or not this film works for you will depend on how much you can buy into the ending. A lot of what goes on with this main character, played by Michael Douglas, hinges on how much you can believe that they've been able to orchestrate everything to such a degree that they could predict exactly what moves he was going to make. If you can buy into that, then yeah, like me, you'll have no problem with the ending. Plus, I just think that the ending has such an emotional punch as well. You know, when he realises what's been going on, and just this weight that kind of lifts, and this realisation, and just, yeah, it's basically a modern day retelling of the Scrooge story, just done very differently. I love it. I just, yeah, absolutely love it. It's a really great film, brilliantly directed. Like I say, may lose some people based on the ending for me, and a great performance by Sean Penn as well. There you go. The Game. At number 5, we've got, again, probably Tarantino's most underrated, most overlooked film, which is Jackie Brown. This came right off the back of Pulp Fiction. You know, Tarantino couldn't have been any bigger after Pulp Fiction. So many people were expecting so much after that film, and for a lot of people, this was a bit underwhelming. Still very well received, very well reviewed, but a lot of people didn't quite put it up there with Pulp Fiction. It didn't quite. I think because it's more subdued, and for me personally, that's why I like it. It's not quite as over the top. You know, you're not going to find any scenes with the gimp in here, things like that. All the better for it, in my mind, personally. But no, I personally think Jackie Brown is the better film. I would actually put it above Pulp Fiction, and that's not a slant on Pulp Fiction, don't get me wrong. I just think that Tarantino matured somewhat between these two films, and I think he took what he learned on Pulp Fiction and yeah, kind of just made it that all the more better for it. He's still got a lot of the stuff he did with Pulp Fiction, you know, crisscrossing storylines, multiple characters, going back and to in time, putting everything in chapters. It's still the same filmmaker. I just feel like, yeah, there's a level of maturity about this film that isn't quite there with Pulp Fiction. And that's not to say that Pulp Fiction isn't a mature film. I just mean for Tarantino, you can see growth there. I personally like this film better. Number 4 is Paul Thomas Anderson's Boogie Nights. A bit of a strange one, this. It's very hard subject matter to tackle because it's heavily involved in the porn industry. There's a lot of stuff in there I don't really want to see. I don't really like seeing graphic sex and stuff in films. But if you can get past those bits and actually look at what's going on in the story, it's ultimately just a story about a family. You know, a family that has been kind of self-made, not by genetics, but by people coming together, working in the same industry, and growing to love each other and need each other. That's the thing. They kind of become codependent on each other. I'm not so sure it's so much a functional relationship. It's definitely dysfunctional, but it points to something that is very human, and just that desire in us all to be part of something, to be part of a family, to have friends and family that we've chosen of our own, that we can belong to. So even if you're in the porn industry, you know, that's the thing, that no matter where you are, no matter where you're working, what you do, we're all fundamentally the same. We all need the same things. So yeah, that's a very small kind of summation of what is a really big film with lots going on in it, and a great central performance by Mark Wahlberg. Number 3, we've got Grosse Pointe Blank. This is a film I believe everyone needs to see. I think not enough people have seen it. It doesn't get talked about enough these days. I remember when it came out on the kind of indie circuit, a lot of people were talking about it. I watched it, was absolutely bowled over by it, love it. About a hitman who goes back to his high school reunion. No one believes him when he says out and out that he's a hitman. They just think he's joking. But yeah, some great fight scenes, really great choreography in there, great performance by John Cusack. This for me is probably my favourite Cusack character. If you look at all the characters he's played, I gravitate towards this one. I think it's great. Great chemistry between him and his sister in this. You know, he's worked with his sister quite a few times in movies. Probably never better than here, to be honest. Yeah, it is. It's a great comedy. I'm not the biggest comedy guy. If you ask most people who know me in the YouTube community, it tends to be a thing. I'm not that big with comedy. But if you want me to list comedies, this would be in there. This would be in my top 10 comedies of all time. It's great. It's funny, hilarious at times, but also a great action movie to boot, and a great relationship drama movie as well. There's a lot of things in the pot there, but it all just works. And number 2, we've got LA Confidential. Now I was so torn between this and my number 1 spot. Ask me on a different day, it would fluctuate. because LA Confidential is perfection. As far as I'm concerned, there is nothing wrong with this film. It doesn't put a foot wrong. It's a film all about honor. It looks at these three different characters. It looks at honor through these three different characters. I've done a video essay on it. I will post a link to that down below if you want to know more on my thoughts on the film. But for me, just the period detail, the direction from Curtis Hanson, this is his best film as well, the performances across the board, just everything about it is just, spot on. Just no one puts a foot wrong. As far as period films go, this is one of my favourites. I love that it captures that 1930s, 40s kind of vibe. 50s it might even be. I think it's 30s. But yeah, it captures it brilliantly. I get transported back to that time when I watch this film, and I kind of want to be there, despite all the chicanery and darkness that is going on in this film. But yeah, great film about honour. So yeah, my number 2 would be my number 1 on a different day, but the film that took it at the time that I made this video is Good Will Hunting. Love this film. It touches me deeply in an emotional way every time I watch it. That scene where they're sat on the bench and Will says nothing because Williams' character is just giving this monologue. He's talking about experience versus knowledge, and how experience trumps knowledge every time, and he just sums that notion up perfectly. And again, towards the end, when they're dealing with all the psychological baggage that Will's character's got, and how that comes out, it's not you, that whole thing that Williams' character does in that, it really affects me. The whole film is just brilliant. It's a brilliant drama, amazing script by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And for me, Gus Van Sant's best film. He tried to recapture this with Finding Forrester, which I just thought was dirge, to be honest. Gus Van Sant has done some other good films, but for me, it's all about the script. And here, he's working with an absolutely blinding script. So yeah, Good Will Hunting, my favourite film of 1997. What is yours? What do you think of my top 10, and what is your favourite film of that year? Comment below, let me know, and until next time, crack it.